welcome everyone. Now you're here, we'll have some fun. First we'll clap our hands just so, then we'll bend and touch our toes. Welcome everyone. Now you're here, we'll have some fun. Today's animal is a seahorse. Eric Carle, Mr. Seahorse. Mr. and Mrs. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea. Mrs. Seahorse began to wiggle and twist this way and that. "It's time for me to lay my eggs," she said. "Can I help?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Oh, yes, thank you," said Mrs. Seahorse, and she laid her eggs into a pouch on Mr. Seahorse's belly. "I'll take good care of our eggs," said Mr. Seahorse. "I promise." As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a group of trumpet fish hidden in a patch of reeds. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Stickleback?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Delighted," replied Mr. Stickleback. "I just built a nest, and right away Mrs. Stickleback laid her eggs into it. Now I am taking good care of them until they hatch." "Keep up the good work," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a lionfish hidden behind a coral reef. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Tilapia?" asked Mr. Seahorse. Mr. Tilapia couldn't answer. His mouth was full of eggs. I know," said Mr. Seahorse. "Mrs. Tilapia laid her eggs. Now you are taking good care of them until they hatch." Mr. Tilapia nodded his head. "You must be very happy," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by several leaf fish hidden among the seaweed. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Curtis?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Perfectly fine," replied Mr. Curtis. "Mrs. Curtis laid her eggs, and I have them stuck on my head. Now I am taking good care of them until they hatch." "You are doing a good job," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. As Mr. Seahorse drifted gently through the sea, he passed right by a stonefish hidden behind a rock. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Pipe?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Couldn't be better," replied Mr. Pipe. "Mrs. Pipe laid her eggs along my belly. Now I am taking good care of them until they hatch." "You should feel proud of yourself," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. But before long, Mr. Seahorse met another fish. "How are you, Mr. Bullhead?" asked Mr. Seahorse. "Tip-top," replied Mr. Bullhead. "Mrs. Bullhead laid her eggs, and the eggs hatched. Now I'm babysitting." "You are doing a fine job," said Mr. Seahorse, and swam on his way. The time had come for the seahorse babies to be born. Mr. Seahorse wiggled and twisted this way and that. At last the babies tumbled from Mr. Seahorse's pouch and swam away. One baby turned around and tried to come back into the pouch. "Oh no," said Mr. Seahorse. "I do love you, but now you are ready to be on your own." You have been listening to Mr. Seahorse by Eric Carle. Guys, time to stand up and move our bodies. We're going to play a game of What's That Animal Doing? Ready? We're going to shake these cards up. Ready? Today we're going to strut like a rooster. Can you strut like a rooster? Strut, 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 strut. And we're going to stomp like a cow. Are you ready? Stomp, 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 stomp. Great job. One more. Let's do one more. Ready? What other animal have we got today? Gallop like a horse. Ready? Get up! Whoop, whoop, whoop. Seahorses by Grace Hansen. Seahorses live in shallow tropical ocean waters. Seahorses range in size. They can be less than 1 inch long. They can be more than 14 inches long. A small dorsal fin on its back helps it swim. 2 pectoral fins on its sides help it steer. A seahorse has a special tail. It uses its tail to hold onto plants. Seahorses have very good eyesight. This keeps them safe from predators. It also helps them find food. Seahorses mostly eat plankton. Their long snouts suck in the food. Males and females greet each other each morning. Most species stay together for life. A male seahorse has a pouch. He carries eggs inside the pouch. This is very different from other animals. Males carry the eggs for a few weeks. Baby seahorses are on their own after they hatch. More facts. Seahorses do not have teeth or a stomach. They eat almost constantly to stay alive. Seahorses are not good swimmers. They travel more easily by holding onto pieces of floating seaweed. A seahorse can change shape and color to blend in with its environment. Glossary. Dorsal fin. A fin used to move that is found on a seahorse's back. Environment. Everything that surrounds and affects a living thing. Pectoral fins. A pair of fins just behind a seahorse's head used for steering. Plankton. Very small animals that drift through the ocean. Predator. An animal that lives by eating other animals. Shallow, not deep. You have been listening to Seahorses by Grace Hansen. Joining us for today's Animal Explorers Seahorses. We began our journey today with Mr. Seahorse by Carle, published by Penguin Young Readers. And we got to see how the male seahorse really helps to give birth to the baby seahorses. And we also got to learn about how other fish give birth to their young as Mr. Seahorse traveled through the sea meeting other parents and seeing how they care for their babies and their eggs. Then we read Seahorses by Grace Hansen, and we learned such cool things about seahorses. They can be really tiny, like an inch long, or way long, like 14 inches. That's a big difference. Can you imagine going through the world if you were this tiny all the time? That's pretty small. And we also learned they have no stomachs. What would you do if you had to eat constantly because you had no stomach to hold your food? That's pretty crazy, right? Thanks for joining us for today's Animal Explorers Seahorses. Let us know your favorite animal so we can cover it on a future Animal Explorers.